Original Kurungafuga Charter. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for your brilliant speech. So enthusiastic, crystal clear, and so sharp. You have made very, very relevant comments. Thank you for that. And I believe this is really a source of inspiration for all of us. In addition to that, I'm very happy that you said you were taking questions, but given the fact that we don't have a lot of time, I suggest we only take 5 or 6 questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, who would like to take the floor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. Good. Go ahead, please.
Excellency, Monsieur le Président.
Excellency, Honorable President, thank you very much for this brilliant presentation. Just one very topical question that I'd like to ask you. Mali shares with a number of other African countries, amongst which Benin, Niger, Ivory Coast, the CFA franc. Despite the creation of the economic and monetary union in West Africa, this money is still linked to the euro with a fixed parity with the French franc. In light of the international financial crisis and the economic financial crisis, isn't there a risk of another devaluation of this currency? That's my first question. Second part of my question, what do the involved heads of states do to compensate for the collateral effects of the international financial crisis? Thank you for your reply.
Je suis Hakimi.
I'm Hakimi Youssoufou from Benin. I'm a student at the ISS. Thank you. Okay, if I may, I can take one question after the other, or do we take them all first? I'm Yokova Francois. Excellency, Honorable President. The emergence of new cooperation partners for Africa, such as China, gives no prior condition to abiding by human rights and the principles of democracy. Isn't this...
Okay,
My name is Elizabeth, coming from Canada. Mali is one of the only countries in the world to have adopted a policy of agricultural development that needs to guarantee food sovereignty. 10 days ago, close to Senengue, an international alliance was launched against the taking away of soils. In the declaration, it states that the government, to promote private investment in agriculture, is now ready to give away thousands of hectares of productive services to private parties. So, Excellency, what will be the impact on security and food security in Mali? Thank you.
Monsieur le Président.
Excellency, we've all admired your speech very much, your speech on democracy in Mali. So congratulations. You've also addressed human rights issues, and you gave your charter of the ancient Mali Empire. Now that you're at The Hague is called the 4th UN city, especially involved in human rights. The Hague has many tribunals. So, as an African head of state, I'd like to ask you, what is the efficiency of those tribunals in The Hague for the development of human rights in Mali. Do you think these tribunals are efficient, sufficient, or do you believe there are points that could be improved to improve the human rights? I'm professor here, Michel Grimm, at the ISS. Excellency, Honorable President, thank you so much for your speech, especially for having shared with us the history of Mali, which is your history, and it was really, really interesting. I have a question about regional integration that you addressed very briefly when you talked about the fight against terrorism. Regional collaboration is a very difficult process, as we can also see in Europe. So my question is, to what extent do you think that regional integration is an important factor in the sustainability of the democratization process in Western Africa? Thank you. Thank you, Lide Boka, Strategic Manager. Thank you so much, President. You told us that when you got back in 2002, it was because you noticed there were really problems in your country. Do you think these problems have been solved since then? And what if within 5 years from now you see that these difficulties have come back? I'm talking about internal politics. Do you believe that consensual policy and consensual politics? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for these questions. I must admit that I didn't leave you much time. I talk a lot. I loved it. And I took advantage of this situation. You know, I was a teacher before. I was a teacher. I was going to teach history and geography. So my first option was education. So one day I told myself, education is good, but I want to be a soldier. As a soldier, I said, I want to be para commando. So I changed directions, and I misled my friends, and I went to the military school. But at the end, when I came back in the troops, I became a trainer, a commando trainer. So I was still a teacher, even within the military. But as a president, what is the biggest pleasure I have? Each time I go back to a military academy, I love to speak to those students. I love to teach. So maybe the day that I don't have anything more to do, I know what I can do. Why not come back next year for another conference before you? Ladies and gentlemen, as regards the CFA franc, it is true that at present there's a discussion about this issue. Nobody will tell you the truth, because devaluation or the link with the euro or not is not the issue at stake. That's what the bankers tell us. But those bankers said exactly the same thing when we first devaluated the CFA franc. The day before, even overnight, when we asked about the devaluation, they said there will be none. And the next day, there was a devaluation. So I must admit, I don't know what's going to happen. Despite that fact, despite the crisis, the first crisis, the second crisis, our economies are fine, pretty much fine. Thanks to the budgetary aid from the Netherlands, we are very, very privileged. Since 4 or 5 years now, we have a growth of over 5%. You know why? Because 20 years ago, we learned not to spend more than what we had. And today, we see that some countries should follow the same path that was imposed upon us. At some time, 80% of the income was going to salaries. There was nothing allocated to development. And to reimburse our debt, we could simply not, because we didn't make enough money to reimburse our debts. We just could pay our salaries. So we lived beyond our means. But then we cleansed our economy, and at present we are an economy under control. When I take our currency, we have the CFA franc and the BCAO and the Banking Commission that day after day controls, hour after hour, it controls the evolution of our currency. This means that if you deviate, they call you to order. And maybe this is what was missing somehow and somewhere. So at present, really, the financial crisis, we go through it, we are scared of it, because the countries that help us are going through this crisis, which is really worrying. But what could be done? The first thing is that the public development aid in certain countries were lowered. For other countries, they were still stable. 0.8% or 0.7%. And some of them even spent over 3 or 4%. So this is really a wonderful thing. This is really thanks to the generosity of the Netherlands. And then there are the prices of commodities. What we buy, we sell. And this is a very important part of our income from foreign trade. So the third point is the diaspora of Benin, of Mali. They're not going to university, they're working. They produce prosperity. They send back a lot of money to Mali. If you look at the diaspora living elsewhere, and what they send back is more than all development aid that we receive. So we're doing pretty well despite the crisis. Prosperity came from those living in other countries, so this is an important factor. So this is how we live. So to say that we feel the crisis, not as much, but with the present crisis, it leads to many worries. We do not know what it's going to lead to. We do not know whether our currency is going to be linked to the euro or not, but we have to think about it. We will not eternally stay within our currency. There's Western Africa and Central Africa. But now, regarding Western Africa, we have two monetary zones, the CFA zone and the other zone, such as the Anglo countries, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, the Liberian dollar, the Guinean franc. Those countries do not have the same currency as we have. Same goes for Gambia. In other words, we decided to be able to work on the basis of convergence criteria to try to integrate all those countries in one single currency. It's a very ambitious study. It's an ongoing study. It's not yet there, but already since 3 or 4 years, we've started thinking about it to have better financial integration, to make sure that if we let go of the CFA franc, which I do not know for sure, any others will have to let go their currency. But on the basis of what we see now happening in Europe, we really have to think thoroughly.
Pour ce qui concerne la Chine.
Regarding the question about China, we do not really ask ourselves that question. It's a good partner. China is a good partner. They don't talk to us about human rights, and we don't talk to them about human rights. They're just coming for business, and they do participate to our development. They do pay well, and they don't have mines. China don't export any raw material, any commodity. But with China, we have a partnership over 50 years of friendship. We were one of the first countries to support China with the non-aligned countries. We were party of those countries that supported the entry of China in the United Nations. But the Chinese are grateful to us for that. So China, they do everything we ask them to do. But we don't mingle with, we don't interfere in their internal politics, and they don't do that to us either. So there's morality and there are other things. There's development, there's business, and there's business interests. So this does not prevent us from the fact that morality stays very important. Regarding food security now, let me reassure you, we're not letting go of anything. This could be my simple answer. We don't know about this rumor about that they will let go of a lot of fields and agricultural land. I thank Holland so much for having helped us on agriculture. So what we wished to do is to have a transition from a family agriculture to an industrial agriculture. So we need more investment, we need more means, we need more mechanization, we need more investments once again, and fertilizers. So what we decided is to prepare the land and to lend them to some private parties. But the conditions were that the lands were still ours. And this is where we have a system whereby we lend the land for 50 years, 60 years, or 70 years for someone who's going to exploit it. But at present, there are not over 300 hectares concerned by this system. So really, my answer is we don't not let go of any land. Mali is not selling their lands to anyone. We have no intention to do that. So we have an agricultural policy, and if people want to be involved, they have to invest in it. Since the French colonization that created the Office du Niger, we still have not yet been able to organize 50% of it. So 50 years after the independence and after the exploitation of Office du Niger, since 1932, we have not managed to structure over 10% of the 1 million hectares in the Office du Niger. So we don't have this pressure. Let me reassure you, food security is our aim, it's our ambition, it's our objective, it's of vital importance to us. But let me tell you that Mali is not going to let go of any land at all. Some sectors are focused on family agriculture, others are focused on more investment, and other sectors are focused on huge investments and industrial agriculture. About the efficiency question, the efficiency of the tribunals here in The Hague, let me be very frank and honest with you. Africans believe that certain tribunals are just made for them, to try them. This is a pity. Really, I was at the African Union where some told me, no, the tribunals, we voted for them, but we have the feeling that only we are being tried, and the others. Despite that, I have a huge amount of respect for these institutions, for The Hague as a human rights city. Mali is participating. Mali supported and subscribed to the idea of the International Criminal Court. And Mali is also a party to those who subscribe to the ICC. And we have the privilege of having a Malian lady sitting in the circle of judges of the ICC. She's a vice chair, vice president. In other words, we have no problem whatsoever. We do fully agree with those tribunals. But generally speaking, some of African countries say, these tribunals are just trying us. So it's about the format, it's about interpreting their existence, and there are some leaders in some countries and some militaries that don't agree. Maybe there should be better communication to avoid this type of misunderstandings. About the integration now.
A few years ago, it was like the main thing we talked about. First of all, integration. We know that some succeeded, some integration didn't succeed at all. If I take, for example, the ECOWAS, we also have small communities of integration, like, for example, some small governments. But I think that on this aspect, it works better. One of the sub-regional integration community or work organization is the organization, how do you call it, for the Senegal River. But we, at the African Union, we all agree for integration. We decolonized. And with others, apart from the apartheid thing, we organized the African Union conference in Durban. And I think one day, one big president of Africa said, once you organized an African Union conference in South Africa, you can say that we've gone very far. And this has been done. But really, in terms of the African Union, we went through a very difficult time around the Libyan question, not for the object as such, but for the voice, really. This meant that, in a way, and it went to really our limit because we didn't actually speak in with one voice. Even if we don't agree, we usually find consensus. Everybody agreed that we needed democracy in Libya. This is something we didn't want to challenge. Everybody agreed even that Gaddafi had to give up. I was among the heads of states who went to see Gaddafi and went to Benghazi to talk with the two parties with a roadmap that was actually prepared by African Union. So I myself physically was there. And perhaps this was a conference next year when I have nothing else to do. But today, there are difficulties we need to say. There are difficulties in terms of integration. There are things to do. But there's also successes. We need to focus on them. Another colleague asked a question and asked me, do you think that the consensus resolved all problems? My answer is no. Not really. But the consensus actually meant that we could find a new way. We can say that, yes, we can have democracy. Democracy can be done in a different way with our own values, by keeping these universal ideas the base of democracy. But will I go back? No, I really don't wish so. And I think also that I would like to have another life. My grandchild always says, look, Granddad, will you come to pick me up at school tomorrow? As a president, I can't explain to him why the others are going and I don't go. He can't understand me. I tell him, but he doesn't agree. He's not happy. He says, Granddad, are you coming to pick me up or not? He doesn't understand why I don't go. So imagine, in a few months' time, when I have nothing else to do,